Discover the incredible moment when a shy maid revealed hidden truths to a millionaire from China. Emily scrubbed the marble floors of the penthouse lobby, each stroke a timid attempt to erase the weight of her existence. In her late 30s, she had carved a niche as a maid in the lavish New York high-rise, but the glass and chrome corridors felt more like a cage than a sanctuary. She often looked up, catching glimpses of the opulent lifestyle flourishing just above her, where dreams seemed to manifest with a flick of a wrist. But here she was, scrubbing away, invisible among the murmurs of wealth and privilege. "What have you done today to better your future?" A voice echoed in her mind, an echo from her mother's relentless encouragement that only highlighted her stillness. The shadows fluttered as Liang stepped into the lobby, his presence commanding yet disarming. He offered her a bright smile, one that contrasted sharply with the confusing multitude of feelings that gripped her. Although they exchanged only a few superficial words, Emily suddenly didn't feel so invisible. The rare moments of such brief contact unraveled a stillness within her. Can people like me even aspire to reach his world? She wrestled with escalating self-doubt, tethered to her upbringing and modest means, shadows of anxiety constantly circling her thoughts. Leaning against her cleaning cart, Emily surrendered to the familiar turmoil. Ambition battled against ingrained loyalty, inner dreams suffocating under layers of guilt. Liang had opened a small door to her world, whispering promises of possibilities, but now, that same door stood precariously ajar, threatened by a secret she had unearthed, an old family mystery that connected them both in ways she dared not think about. A question loomed like an anchor: was this a twist of fate offering her the chance to change her trajectory, or just another trap? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. With every secret-laden thought, her heart raced. Would revealing the truth make her feel liberated, standing tall beside Liang, or would it shatter the fragile bond they had built? Glancing out from the small window of her dim room, she imagined a different life, one filled with education, respect, and a chance to thrive. But the echo of her mother's voice nagged louder. She could not betray the values instilled in her. Honor and loyalty were meant to persist, even if ambition gnawed insistently at her insides. Emily's fingers clenched around the wall-mounted phone she used to call Liang when needed, where every ring brought with it both anticipation and dread. Moments spent together were treasures she tucked away, but the looming revelation weighed heavy on her. She could sense the intricate threads tying their lives together, yet with each passing day, they became a noose tightening around her conscience. As tension pulsed within her, the looming decision between honesty and desire became a tempest within her mind. What awaited her on the other side of that choice haunted her dreams and darkened the light of her burgeoning friendship. Would she reach for the life she desperately craved or remain shackled by her deference? The storm brewed, and within it, the clock ticked down to a moment of reckoning, a moment that could just as easily unravel their lives as it could weave their fates together. In the dim light of early morning, Emily busied herself with her cleaning chores, each task a familiar rhythm that mirrored her inner struggle. The grand hallways of the penthouse, usually filled with the quiet clinks of luxury, now bore witness to her silent turmoil. As she made her way through the sweeping arches and polished floors, her thoughts spiraled back to the conversation she had with Liang the previous evening. His laughter lingered in her mind, a golden thread unraveling the fabric of her modest life. Despite her work, the isolation felt sharper today, and the weight of the secret she carried pressed heavily on her conscience. The knowledge that their fates were intertwined in a way neither of them could fully comprehend stirred unease. Was it a blessing or a curse? With each passing encounter, every bright gaze exchanged, she felt an invisible tether pulling her closer to a world she had never believed belonged to her. But the whispers of ambition fought fiercely against the anchors of her loyalty. What if she failed to act? What if this moment, so ripe with potential, slipped away, leaving her choking on regrets? The thought of a life spent merely existing consumed her thoughts, a bitter pill she could no longer tolerate. Emily glanced at her reflection in a mirrored surface, the stark contrast of her humble attire against the backdrop of luxury igniting a determination buried deep within her. She couldn't remain in this stagnant role forever. Liang had unknowingly ignited a spark in her, inspiring dreams she had buried long ago under layers of obligation. The urge to share the truth about their families gnawed at her, a constant reminder of the connection that could change everything. However, fear gripped her heart. What if he recoiled? What if he viewed her not as an equal, but as a mere maid, just another layer of grime under the sheen of his life? Emily paused, her mind racing. The day was unfolding, and so was an internal dialogue demanding resolution. It was time to strategize. An important step awaited her. But she needed to confirm her instincts before stepping forward. She resolved to learn more about Liang, to understand what shaped the man before her, a millionaire with roots that might not be so distant after all. As she returned to her tasks, her cleaning cart transformed into her sanctuary. Tools of her trade became instruments of her plan. She spent minutes observing the comings and goings of the penthouse inhabitants, noting subtle details she usually glossed over. Laughter, conversations, power dynamics, each moment offered a chance to grasp where she fit into this opulence if she dared. Emily felt a flicker of what felt like potential. When the opportunity arose, she would approach Liang not as a maid, but as a woman with value. But the question loomed, how would she frame this truth? What words could encapsulate her tale without overwhelming him with the weight of their shared history? As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the shadows lengthened in concert with her resolve. No longer just a maid, she was an architect of her destiny, one bold enough to confront the unknown. All that remained was the resolve to speak, to untangle their fates. But the clock continued to tick, and time was an unyielding taskmaster. The moment of truth was approaching, and Emily realized it was not just a revelation of her secret. It would be a disclosure of who she had become amidst the darkness of conformity and expression of the changing tide. As she braced for the encounter, conflict bawled in her gut. Would he see the woman beneath the dust and shine, or would the truth crumble their connection before it could flourish? Just then, her phone buzzed, and she hesitated. A message from Liang flashed on her screen. Can we meet today? I'd really like to talk. Breathe, Emily urged herself. The storm within had reached its peak, and she could either weather it or let it crash her world. In that moment, she knew the time had come to face her destiny head-on. The sunlight streaming through the tall windows of the penthouse felt like a spotlight, illuminating Emily's internal conflict as she paced the small staff area, her heart racing. The message from Liang had shattered the routine of her day, igniting a fire within her that had long been smoldering. She fought to calm her nerves through deep breaths, but the anticipation clawed at her, wanting to burst free. Meeting him felt like approaching the edge of a precipice. The potential for both triumph and disaster loomed before her in equal measure. Emily had thought of this moment countless times, spinning scenarios in her mind, all ending with a sense of unresolved tension. She had envisioned the conversation turning to her family's secret and the complexity of their lives. Yet, no amount of mental rehearsal could prepare her for what might come next. As she prepped for the encounter, she caught glimpses of her reflection in the mirrored surfaces of the penthouse. Every natural imperfection, every wrinkle from years of worry, felt amplified. She commanded herself to focus on the qualities that truly defined her: resilience, intelligence, determination. Those were her armor and her power, not the trappings of her occupation. Today, she would articulate her worth with honesty and courage. The clock on the wall ticked with unforgiving steadiness. Each click intensified her anxiety, urging her forward. It was time to enact her plan, and with every step she took, she reinforced her resolve. As she made her way to the appointed meeting spot, an informal seating area adorned with plush cushions and lush plants, she rehearsed her opening words. "Liang," she would say, tilting her gaze upward with confidence, "There's something I need to share with you. Something about me and about us." The words felt hollow and incomplete in her mind's echo, but there was no turning back now. When she arrived at the meeting place, her heartbeat quickened. Liang wasn't there yet, and the silence hung heavy, amplifying her uncertainty. She sought solace in the surrounding beauty of the space, elegant artwork gracing the walls, designer furniture, perfectly arranged reminders of the disparity that often left her weary. Each detail grounded her in the reality of the challenge ahead. Moments later, he arrived, his face brightening as he spotted her. "Emily." His warmth seemed to wrap around her like a comforting blanket, yet she felt the distance of their worlds like a barrier between them. She offered a tentative smile, but the anxiety gnawed at her core, tightening with each passing second. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, settling into his seat across from her, his demeanor relaxed yet expectant. Emily gathered her thoughts, feeling the time weigh heavily as silence enveloped them. This was the moment to bridge their realities. "I wanted to discuss something important," she began, her voice stronger than she felt inside. He leaned in, eyes bright with curiosity. "What is it?" That single question opened a floodgate of emotions within her, the fears, the hopes, and the unrelenting drive for connection. Just as she found her voice, a critical thought intruded: would he embrace her revelation or reject it outright? The pressure mounted, and as she prepared to unveil the truth of their intertwined pasts, another layer of doubt emerged. The words danced on her tongue, craving liberation, but before she could articulate the depth of what she felt, she barely noticed the way his brow furrowed slightly. Suddenly, the vibrant atmosphere shifted ever so subtly, shadows crossing their light as exterior realities pushed against their moment. Who would she be if he didn't understand? As the openness of her heart hung in the balance, she understood that this was not just about revealing her past, it was about showcasing her evolution. Would he see her willingness to confront destiny? Would he finally recognize the woman behind the maid? In that precarious moment, a buzzing tension filled the air, crystallizing the importance of her next words. Did she have what it took to illuminate their connection? The air thickened as she realized that in this moment of uncertainty, not just her heart, but her entire path lay bare before them both. With each beat of her heart, she prepared to cross the threshold from silence to revelation. But as she opened her mouth to speak, something caught her eye through the stunning windows, an unexpected sight that threatened to shatter everything she had built up to this point. Emily felt the weight of her decision, the mantle of her truth pressing against her. With the stakes rising sharply, it was no longer just a matter of words, their world was about to shift in ways neither of them could predicate. What was outside, lurking on the edge of their perfect moment, had the potential to forever alter their fates. And she knew, in that pivotal instance, the time for secrets was running out. Emily's gaze snapped away from the window as shock coursed through her veins. Outside, a black sedan had pulled up, and her heart raced as she recognized the familiar silhouette of her estranged father stepping out. The world she had fought to build for herself, to disentangle from her family's legacy, was now at her doorstep, threatening to collapse around her. "Emily?" Liang's voice cut through her panic, drawing her back to the moment, but the tremor in her hands betrayed her. He noticed her sudden shift, his expression morphing from curiosity to concern. The warmth she previously felt from him faded, replaced by a stark urgency. "Are you okay?" he asked, leaning closer. "Yeah," she managed, though doubt polluted her response. The reality of her father being here made the truth she wanted to share fade, drowned out by the shadows of her past. Liang's expression held unspoken questions, and for a moment, Emily felt education peer through her facade. She had always considered her past a burden, one that required constant suppression. Yet here was a chance for liberation. If she illustrated her journey, the turmoil she felt could dissolve, enabling them to connect on a meaningful level. As her mind raced, strategizing how to address the storm brewing outside, she stilled herself. The act of expelling her truths might very well save her, allowing her to embrace vulnerability instead of being paralyzed by it. With Liang's eyes on her, she finally decided to forge ahead. Liang, there is something I need to tell you. About my family. About who I am. She hesitated, feeling the weight of the moment. I've been running away from my past for so long, Emily, he interjected softly, concern weaving through his words. You don't have to carry this alone. I'm right here. Her heart flipping, she shook her head slightly. Here was someone willing to listen, to share her burdens instead of judging her. But could she articulate the scars that had shaped her? As if reading her thoughts, he said, You can trust me, I want to understand you. Taking a deep breath, she began recounting her life, the struggles, and the secrets that attached themselves like a shadow. My father, the confession surged forward, hesitant yet desperate to break free. He made decisions that affected all of us, decisions that made me question my worth. With each revelation, Emily's voice grew stronger, fueled by the combination of her resolve and Liang's unwavering gaze. It felt liberating. The trepidation she had felt moments ago was beginning to wane. Seeing him now, I realized that I've lived in fear of his judgment and expectations. I built this life, this identity that I thought could shield me from his influence, she admitted, choking on the shame of her honesty. Liang listened intently, processing the depths of her experience. And what does his appearance mean for you? He asked cautiously, sensing the shift in her energy. Emily paused, uncertainty flooding her mind yet contrasted by a burgeoning strength. Facing her past wouldn't mean surrender, it was a journey towards reclaiming her identity, a chance to transform shame into empowerment. I want to confront him, to stand in my truth. But I don't want to go down this path alone. Resolute determination replaced her earlier hesitation. Would Liang support her, or would the weight of her family's South legacy drive a wedge between them? At this critical juncture, Emily's fate intertwined with the choices she controlled. It was time for clarity. Are you with me, Liang? She whispered, craving both guidance and solidarity. The air hummed with potential, amplifying her resolve. As he processed her words, the tension coiled around them both, but there was a glimmer of hope underlying their shared vulnerability. As he opened his mouth to respond, the exterior noise of tires screeching caught Emily's attention. Her father's voice, authoritative and booming, rippled toward them through the glass. The decisive moment lay ahead, one that would put to the test her ability to navigate her reality. Could she forge a new path from the weight of her history? And in that instant, the fate of her relationship with Liang hung precariously on the precipice of the truth she had just begun to share. Emily's heart raced as her father's voice sliced through the murmur of her thoughts. Authority dripped from his words, layering each syllable with cold familiarity. It served as a reminder that her carefully cultivated world of independence could crumble at any moment. With her past closing in, she felt more exposed than ever. What do I do? She whispered to Liang, her voice barely a tremor above the rising tension. Her plea for guidance felt vulnerable, like stepping onto shaky ground devoid of support. Liang met her gaze, his brow furrowed with concern yet brimming with determination. You stand your ground, Emily. You are not that scared little girl anymore. You've built a life here, you belong in it. His words echoed within her as an unexpected spark of courage ignited. She had fought her demons long enough, and here was her chance to reclaim her narrative through confrontation. Yet, doubt clawed at the edges of her resolve. What if she faltered? What if facing him unraveled her fragile sense of self? A deep breath steadied her. The reality was unavoidable. The man who represented the past she both resented and feared had returned to challenge the identity she fought so hard to establish. Okay, she murmured, her voice gaining strength. I need to face him. Equipped with resolve and an ally, she stepped toward the door, her palms sweaty but her mind cleared. Each footfall felt heavy, measuring the distance between her past terrors and present possibilities. As she turned the doorknob, Liang rested his hand on her shoulder, steadying her with silent support. Ready? He asked, his voice calm yet charged with electricity. "Let us do this," she replied, forcing a confidence she did not fully feel. When she opened the door, the sharp gust of night air hit her, the smell of rain mixed with asphalt was almost grounding. She took a moment to absorb the scene, a black sedan looming ominously, and there was her father, impeccably dressed, eyes narrowing as they met hers. "Well, aren't you a sight for sore eyes?" he said, his tone dripping with insincerity. The disdain in his gaze was unmistakable, distorting the childhood memories she had always tried to suppress. "Dad," Emily declared, embodying a voice that had eluded her for so long. "We need to talk." She felt Liang's presence behind her, a reassuring weight. With each word that emerged, clarity solidified within her. The girl who once cowered under his expectations was fading, now stood a woman intent on defining her own terms. "What is there to talk about, Emily?" he replied, gesturing dismissively. "I have more important matters to attend to. I'm not just some phase in your life to ignore," she pressed forward, shaking off the hurt his arrogance evoked. This was her moment to shatter the silence surrounding many truths. His dismissive smirk faltered slightly, creating a crack in his armor, a crack she could exploit. "You think you can just dismiss years of my work and expectations? You've strayed far from the path I laid out for you." Emily's heart thundered, the anger she felt metamorphosed into fiery determination. "I'm not that little girl anymore. I've built my own path, independent of your shadows." For the first time, she felt the rippling undercurrents of empowerment pulsing through her, breaking free from years of a self-imposed prison. The ground beneath her seemed to steady, and she pressed onward. "Your expectations won't define my life or my worth. I am here, and I am choosing to live openly for myself, not for you." An unexpected silence enveloped them, and she could see the calculations unfolding in his mind. In that moment, the weight of years hung in the air between them, thickening with the potential of confession or collision. Liang's grip on her shoulder tightened, urging her current state toward the brink of a pivotal decision. Would her father double down with harsh words, or would he attempt to wave away the history of pain he had inflicted? The confrontation hung perilously, and the next second stretched like a taut wire, ready to snap with her next words. What truths lay hidden and what repercussions awaited her brave stand? As her father's lips curled into a mocking smile, Emily sensed the looming challenge ahead, a battle not just against him, but against the lingering shadows of her past still entwined with her identity. With the tension palpable, Emily held her father's gaze, defiance coursing through her veins. The air was thick with a silence that sparked 1,000 unvoiced arguments, waiting to be ignited. Her father, ever the master of manipulation, seemed momentarily taken aback, the facade of confidence faltering. "Emily, you really think this defiance serves you?" he countered, his tone shifting from dismissive to dangerously inquisitive. "Have you even thought this through? You're jeopardizing everything I've built for you." His words pricked at an old wound, and for a fraction of a second, doubt seeped into her resolve. Was she truly jeopardizing something, or was that just another of his tactics? The thought sent her heart racing as she wrestled with her instincts. But beneath her self-doubt, a fierce certainty fought to surface. "You built a life on expectations that never fit me," she argued, her voice steadying, bolstered by the presence of Liang behind her. "I refuse to let your vision of success erase who I am." His eyes narrowed, assessing her. "You're making a mistake. You don't see the bigger picture," he replied, a hint of desperation creeping into his authoritative tone. Emily took a deep breath, the gravity of his words rippling through her, but she felt the steady pulse of her own heartbeat signifying life, potential, and choices made for herself. "No, Dad, I'm finally seeing clearly. You cannot define what success means to me. It never was yours to control." The moment hung still, like the calm before a storm. Her father's expression morphed from disdain to something akin to surprise, as if he were questioning his own ability to intimidate her. Could he really be shocked at her transformation? She leaned into that revelation, determined to keep it alive within her. "What do you expect to achieve with such defiance, Emily?" he challenged, breaking the silence that enveloped them. "A career in art? Where's the stability in that?" "Stability?" Emily scoffed, the word taste bitter on her tongue. "Stability was never my goal. I want fulfillment, I want passion, I want to create." For the first time, she didn't hesitate, her words flowing with conviction. "You never allowed me to imagine my own dreams, Dad. They've been buried under your ambitions, but no longer." Her father's mask began to crack further, revealing the sharp hints of anger lurking beneath the cracks she had hoped to widen. "Passion won't pay the bills, Emily. What will you do when your art doesn't sell? When you realize you've thrown away your opportunities?" His voice became a dangerous whisper, simmering with frustration. "Opportunities?" she echoed. "You don't get to decide what opportunities one have. Real opportunities lie in the choices I make for myself. I'll stumble, I might fall, but at least I'll be taking risks for me." Every word felt like a liberation from the chains he had unwittingly forged. She was shedding decades of programming, and the exhilaration of that realization ignited a fire she didn't know she possessed. In a moment of clarity, Emily allowed herself a fleeting glance back at Liang. The unyielding support in his eyes reaffirmed her communion with reality, a partnership built on mutual respect. They were a team, weathering the storm of her revelations together. "What about your mother? She could use your support. Do you really want to be another disappointment?" He lashed out, unwilling to let go without a fight. The nostalgia of loss crept in, stirring emotions she had tucked away and shredded for safekeeping. Confronting her father wasn't just about her, it was about the complexities of a family shattered by control and expectations. "This isn't just about me anymore, it's about breaking a cycle of hurt. I refuse to allow that pain to pass to the next generation." His laugh was harsh, a cruel sound that seemed at odds with the flickers of vulnerability she had glimpsed. "Those are noble words, my dear, but the world doesn't care about your principles." With resolve tightening her throat, Emily softened her voice. "Maybe so. But the world won't define my values. Either. I'll create my path. If I stumble, I'll learn, if it's difficult, I'll adapt. My journey will be mine." The silence stretched again, heavy with unresolved tension, but for the first time, Emily felt a tangible shift in the air. The moment bristled with potential. Power wasn't solely in control, it was in choice, in the ability to rewrite one's narrative. As her father regarded her, the fight still in his eyes, Emily braced for the final onslaught. She realized, perhaps, she wouldn't escape unscathed, but the fear that threatened to creep back in was quickly vanishing, as she focused on the woman she was becoming, a woman determined not to lose herself again. Just then, a sound broke the tension. A sudden honk echoed from the road, pulling her father from the precipice of confrontation, and she seized her chance. "I will not let you dictate my reality anymore," she declared, ensuring her voice thundered with unyielding resolve. With a tightened grip on her own story, she stepped back, yet felt her words ripple through the space between them. What other layers of her past remained to be unearthed? Her father's silence promised more confrontation ahead, one she wasn't yet ready to face. But the determination that brewed within her signaled the dawn of a new chapter. What more would she uncover about her own strength when the next confrontation began? Emily stepped out of her father's house, the cold air washing over her like a cleansing wave after the heat of their confrontation. Each breath felt deliberate, filled with new possibilities, and yet her heart beat erratically beneath her chest. She had stood firm, but in the aftermath, the chaos of emotions danced behind her eyes: relief, fear, and an undercurrent of excitement. Liang was waiting a few yards away, hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket, the warmth of his smile a stark contrast to the chill outside. He took a step closer as she approached, concern shadowing his features. "Are you all right?" Emily nodded, the weight of her father's words still collecting in her mind but overshadowed by a newfound clarity. "I finally told him how I feel." The words came out almost as a confession, as if unraveling some hidden part of herself in front of Liang. "You were incredible," he replied softly. There was a fervor in his eyes as he continued, "You stood up to him. That takes guts." Yet beneath her confidence, an unsettling thought nagged at Emily. What would come next? The image of her father's scorned expression clawed at her confidence, raising questions of her decision to reject his path means more than a mere career shift. As she started to walk, Liang matched her pace, a steady presence as she mulled over the encounter. Is it right to disrupt what he built? She pondered aloud, a hint of doubt sneaking into her voice. Only you can determine what that means, Liang replied. What's more important, the expectations of others, or your happiness? That simple question echoed in Emily's mind like a solemn mantra. Wasn't he that the crux of her struggle? The tug-of-war between external obligation and internal fulfillment was a perilous balance, one she yearned to navigate. As they wandered through the nearby park, sunlight speared through the branches overhead, bathing them in a golden glow that felt almost prophetic. Emily paused, her gaze lost among the branches, feeling a tingle of inspiration bubbling to the surface. Maybe I should start creating something. I've been talking about art, but if I'm going to pursue this, I need a portfolio, a representation of what I want to share with the world. I can't wait for permission. The realization ignited something within her, a spark of motivation. She envisioned the canvases stretched before her, brimming with color, shadows, stories waiting to be told. Liang watched her with a mix of admiration and skepticism, the latter prompting her to voice her thoughts. But I need to prepare myself. What if it's not good enough? What if I fail? Failures are part of growth, Emily. Liang's voice was steady, rooted in an understanding that resonated with Emily. Instead of fearing failure, recognize it as a stepping stone. Determination seeped back into her veins. What if she could design a life where each stumble taught her more about her passion? The images swirling within her began to crystallize into a plan. She would dedicate herself to this art, carve a path devoid of the constraints that had bound her for so long. As ideas began to overwhelm her, Emily's resolve transformed into action. A flicker of creativity ignited her spirit, shifting her focus from fear to possibility. If she was going to reclaim her identity, she needed to embrace the risk of creating something true to herself. Just as they came upon the art studio where she had taken a few classes, her heart raced with anticipation. This could be her haven, a space where she could unleash her emotions on the canvas. The thought was intoxicating. "Let us go in," she said with newfound vigor. "I want to get started today." Liang smiled, the glimmer of support in his eyes sending an electric thrill through her. As they entered, a sense of belonging filled her. It was subtly familiar, yet decidedly new. The air smelled of paint and creativity, and for the first time, she felt that the space was truly hers to explore. In this sanctuary of expression, Emily took a deep breath, soaking in the atmosphere. What art would emerge from such a tumultuous phase of her life? As she stood before the blank canvas, a surge of uncertainties gripped her. Would her father's voice return to haunt her? Would she truly be able to carve out her own identity? The paintbrush hovered above the canvas, her fingers trembling with anticipation. This moment, an intersection of risk and hope, was the very essence of her journey. The first stroke unleashed a torrent of emotion, but what story would unfold from her brush? And as she began to paint, a question lingered: was she ready to face her father's inevitable response to her unleashed creativity? The paintbrush trembled in Emily's grip, poised above the blank canvas like a diver hesitating at the edge of a high platform. The adrenaline surged within her as the thought struck: this moment held the promise of transformation. With a deep breath, she pressed the brush to the surface, allowing the bright blue paint to swirl and meld into the pristine white. Each stroke sent a ripple of exhilaration through her, the uncertainty fading with the metamorphosis of the canvas. Color began to emerge like untamed emotions suddenly breaking free, and as she layered hues upon one another, she no longer felt just the cold of doubt. What once had been fear morphed into a thrilling possibility. Yet, even as abstraction took shape, a stark reminder of her father's expectations lurked in the shadows of her mind. Had she irrevocably shattered the foundations he had built? The stakes felt high, and yet the act of painting transformed her internal conflict into something tangible. "Breathe," she whispered to herself. "This is your time. They're just colors." Liang stepped back, observing her with a keen eye. He understood the weight of the moment. "You're really feeling it, aren't you?" he encouraged, attempting to break the silence that wrestled with Emily's insecurities. "I am," she admitted, the words escaping her lips as fluidly as her strokes across the canvas. "But is it enough? I don't even know where it leads." "Focus on the act, not the outcome," he advised, his voice gentle yet firm. "Art isn't about making the best piece. It's about expressing yourself. That's what will resonate." Emily nodded, absorbing his counsel. What was it about this simple act of creation that forced her to confront the deeper layers of herself? Each drop of paint seemed to represent a piece of her identity, dripping with untamed passion and unresolved thoughts. For years, she had modified herself to fit her father's vision. Now, with each brushstroke, she fought to reclaim the narratives she had silenced. In the hours that followed, colors transformed into shapes that echoed fragments of memories, moments of laughter with friends, her mother's encouraging smile, and even the shadow of her father's expectations that had loomed over her like a shroud. "What do you want your art to say?" Liang's voice broke through her introspection, drawing her attention. "I want it to scream that I exist," she replied, the realization solidifying her purpose. It was not about pleasing anyone. It was about showing herself raw and authentic. As her brush flew with renewed fervor, she imagined the moment when her father would see her work, how he might initially scoff. But beyond that, she envisioned a conversation where she could confront him, not in anger but as an artist sharing her soul, explaining the importance of authenticity over expectation. Dark and light hues clashed beautifully on the canvas, a visual metaphor for her entangled emotions. Each layer became an argument against inadequacy, a metaphorical brick in the wall she was constructing between who she was and who she had been expected to be. Yet, just as the piece neared completion, a sudden halt seized her. The image begged for completion, but uncertainty flickered in her mind. What would her father say if he didn't understand? What if she faced rejection? The door creaked open, and a fellow artist poked in, gauging Emily's progress. Her compliment struck a chord, fortifying Emily's resolve yet igniting that lingering doubt. Was her father's opinion truly a marker of success, or could it exist distanced from her artistic journey? "Out of curiosity, do you think my work is good?" she found herself asking the stranger, seeking validation beyond herself. "You have raw talent," the artist replied honestly, "but more importantly, you're saying something. That's what will captivate people." Captivating people, Emily mulled over the phrase as the artist departed. Perhaps this was the true liberation she sought, inviting not only her father into her evolving narrative but the world itself. With a rush of inspiration, she dipped her brush back into the palette, completing her piece with strokes that felt right, each one reflecting the essence of her journey thus far. As the final stroke settled seamlessly into place, a sense of temporal finality surrounded her. She had forged an identity within this canvas that could not be taken away. But as she surveyed her work, a daunting thought lingered. What next? Was she ready to unveil this vulnerability to the world and to her father? The implications of her choices loomed like a storm on the horizon, threatening to disrupt her newfound clarity. What if this was just the beginning of a confrontation she was not ready to face? Emily stared at the finished piece, her heart racing as layers of emotion swirled within her. The vibrant colors danced across the canvas, each a testament to the turmoil and triumph that had shaped her life. Yet with this creation came an unsettling realization: artistic expression was the gateway to her most profound vulnerabilities. The question loomed: how would she take the next step? Emily felt the familiar weight of uncertainty settle on her shoulders, but this time, it was interlaced with a flicker of determination. She could not let fear dictate her path any longer. Without thinking, she grabbed her phone, hesitating only briefly before clicking through her contacts. The familiar name floated to the surface, and she pressed call. Liang answered after the first ring, his voice warm and inviting. "I finished it," she said, unable to keep the excitement from her tone. "Let us see it," he replied. A wave of nerves washed over her as she positioned the phone to capture the piece behind her. She bit her lip and felt a thrill at sharing this piece of herself. The interpretation was raw and unpolished, but it was an embodiment of her journey. Liang's eyes lit up as he examined the work. "Wow, Emily, this is powerful. The colors, the forms. It's like you opened a door into your soul." Sending warmth through her, his words reinforced a burgeoning sense of pride within her. Yet, as compliments poured in, so did the gnawing unease. She was drifting closer to sharing this vulnerability with the most critical judge of all, her father. "What are you thinking for your next steps?" Liang asked, pulling her from her fears. "I want to show it to my dad," she admitted, the words feeling both liberating and terrifying. "But I'm not sure if I can handle his reaction." "Have you thought about how to approach him?" Emily paused, internalizing his question. Objective discussions of art and passion seemed worlds away from her father's practical outlook. "I haven't figured that out yet." "What if he hates it?" "Then you'll still have created something true to yourself. That's the only way to measure success in art," he reminded her, grounding her in clarity. The dialogue shifted something deep within her, a recognition that she could stand against her father's opinions as long as she honored her own journey. With determination rising, Emily began envisioning the moment of confrontation. What if, instead of clamoring for his approval, she invited him to understand? Though fear still lurked in the doorway of her mind, a newfound courage nudged her forward, leaving the past where it belonged. Days passed, and as she immersed herself back in her painting practice, the studio became an altar of transformation. Each artwork created since the last held a narrative of defiance and individualism. Unexpected inspiration struck on a rainy afternoon, prompting her to grab her supplies and head for a local cafe. Navigating the atmosphere buzzing with hushed whispers and rapid typing, she set up in a corner. The cafe became an unexpected sanctuary, infusing her with the communal pulse of creativity. There, with haunting music in the backdrop, she began a new piece, a reflection of her journey not just as an artist but as a daughter. The colors represented her great desire for understanding and a bridge toward reconciliation. As she painted, brushes gliding on the canvas, her vision began to crystallize. Was this her way of confronting her father? With each precise stroke, she realized that regardless of his acceptance or rejection, her identity was no longer tied to his approval. This work was both an invitation to her father and a manifesto for herself, an assertion that reconciliation could be rooted in honesty. Hours slipped away, and as she stepped back, she saw not just an artistic representation, but a powerful narrative of who she had become. Yet, even in her triumph, uncertainty pulsed within her. Was she truly ready for this confrontation? How would her father react to the depths of her evolution? As the rain sang on the window panes, she made a decision. She would invite him for coffee, an intimate setting for revealing her truth. The thought kindled a mixture of anticipation and dread. The decision had been made, but now she faced the precipice of what that will mean. Would he understand? Would this risk fracture their relationship further, or would it forge a new path? The weight of what lay ahead settled heavily on her shoulders. The time had come to divulge her art and her truth face to face with the man who had shaped so much of her past. Fear pulsed through her, and with it a rising sense of urgency. How would she encapsulate her worth within the canvas she had created, a measure not just of artistic talent, but of a burgeoning identity she was finally ready to embrace? Emily stood before the mirror, her reflection a combination of prepped expressions and lingering doubt. Today was the day she had awaited, her heart thrumming with the weight of what was to unfold. She couldn't shake the nerves that crawled under her skin. The thought of exposing the very essence of who she had become felt like a double-edged sword. As she arrived at the cafe, each step felt heavier than the last. She opened the door, the bell chiming a soft greeting. The familiar aroma of roasted coffee beans embraced her, but nothing could mask the anxiety brewing inside her. Her father was already seated near the window, formality encasing him, the tension in the air thickening as their eyes met. "Emily," he greeted, his voice curt, as if stuck in his own world of expectations. "Dad," she managed, her tone wavering slightly. She took a deep breath, the unshed tears swirling just beneath the surface. Today wasn't just about the past, it was about claiming her present. As they settled into chatter about trivial things, Emily could feel the storm brewing within her. Leaning forward, she finally decided to bridge the gap. "I need to show you something." Her voice was firmer than she felt, defying the bubbles of uncertainty within. Before her father could respond, she pulled out her phone and showed him the image of her latest art piece, an abstract representation of her journey, bursting with vibrant colors, evocative shapes, a visual diary of her struggles, victories, and the essence of who she was becoming. Her father studied the image deeply, the play of emotions across his face shifting from mild disdain to what seemed like astonishment. "This is different," he admitted, his defenses slipping even slightly. "Different?" Emily echoed, her heart pounding. "This symbolizes my battle against your expectations. It's me reclaiming my identity. This is what I want to do, Dad." The silence that followed loomed between them, thick with unexpressed thoughts. Finally, he sighed, his shoulders sagging under the weight of her passion. "You realize this means risking everything I've done for you, right? Art isn't a secure future." Inwardly, Emily bristled yet remained focused. "But it's my future, Dad. I've spent so long trying to meet someone else's idea of success. I need you to understand that my happiness is what matters, not just stability. Look at the feelings poured into this canvas, it's all real, all mine." His gaze softened slightly, and that flicker of understanding allowed Emily to breathe, connecting them across the void her decisions had created. "But what if it doesn't work out?" he pressed, voice threading with concern. Yet something in his tone had shifted. There was a spark of curiosity, perhaps even acceptance. "It might not," she said, her voice steadier now, "but isn't that better than living a life where everything feels out of reach? I'd rather chase a dream than give in to the fear of failing at living my truth." With each word, she transformed. The timid girl enveloped in her father's expectations was displaced by a daring woman, wide awake to her potential. She felt the invisible chains loosen as her father's gaze lingered on her unveiled honesty. "I just wanted you to be safe," he said, his pride cracking just a bit, revealing vulnerability under the surface of rigidity. "Dad, I get it," she replied, swallowing the remnants of old debate, "but safety without authenticity is a cage I refuse to live in." A profound silence stretched between them, carrying the weight of years of misunderstanding, miscommunication, and misplaced emotions. Then, in a moment uncharacteristic of their past, he leaned back and said, "Maybe we both need to let go of our expectations." Emily could hardly believe her ears. Was he willing to reconcile the past with a newfound understanding of her ambition? As the acknowledgement hung in the air, she felt warmth radiate through her heart. "Yes, let us start over," she said, her voice a whisper of dreamlike hope. "But it begins with understanding each other." With that agreement, they engaged deeper in conversation. Barriers slowly crumbling under the storm of honesty shared. They began navigating their complicated history, allowing space for healing and growth. In the weeks following their meeting, Emily established a rhythm of art creation punctuated with clarity of purpose. She exhibited her work locally and was pleasantly surprised by the resonance it created in a community longing for authenticity. Each piece surfaced newly informed emotions, creating a bridge of connection she had craved in life. Meanwhile, her father's acceptance blossomed, allowing him to witness the success of her art through her once distant lens. Their relationship transformed into one anchored in mutual respect, artistry meeting practicality as they began to share opinions without judgment. Emily stood reflecting on her journey from the lobby of that high-rise to her art studio, her identity sculpted through each stroke of creativity. She had dared to stand her ground against fear, confront the ghosts of her past, and channel that into her passion. And as the expansive horizon of her life began to illuminate her path with community acceptance, Emily found a comfort in her heart she had never known, a sense of belonging to herself while forging connections that mattered. She had truly begun living her art, and with it came a solid confidence she would carry into her future endeavors, one brushstroke at a time. This was her achievement, a life lived, a truth expressed, a daughter becoming a woman, and an artist finally free. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you to overcome your own challenges. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these transformative journeys. Comment your reactions and theories about Emily's incredible journey and what it means to face one's fears. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to inspire those around you.